and balance that. Off you go.
Okay. So my question that I have was, how can technology engage and extend student analysis of historical images? And the way that this kind of developed was when we did our prior knowledge paper and we had that interview. When I interviewed kids, they would look at the picture, and if they didn't know it, they wouldn't try to figure it out. They'd just say, I don't know. And so I said, well, how can we get them to analyze the images? Because they obviously do when they look on images at Facebook. Like, they look at Facebook and they say, oh, that's at that person's house because of the picture in the background. I saw kids do that, so I was like, well, why can't they do the same thing with some of the images from class? So I wanted to use technologies that would help pull out those things. And the one that I chose to use first was Smartboard. I had a Smartboard in my classroom, and so it was really easy to kind of incorporate that into my project. And what the Smartboard has is it has a magnifier tool that allows you to spotlight an image or make an image bigger. So like here you can see like the before image, and then like the students would go up and magnify the part that they wanted to talk about. So like a lot of students noticed that this, on this KKK, the hat was different. And so that led into a discussion about how the KKK has leadership and how often KKK leaders were often government officials, and why it became so ingrained in white society because sheriffs and other things were part of the KKK. And so they were able to pull out these little things, and in one class every student would notice it, want to come up to the Smartboard and kind of touch on and say, oh, what does this mean? I want to talk about this. And so they did that with a lot of their images. After they did that technology, we wanted to incorporate movies because they also watch a lot of YouTube. And so I decided to use Flowgram, but I ran into some bandwidth problems at Blacksburg, or at the school I was at. So I had to do it from my home. So the students would like give me what they wanted to create. We did a captioning activity where at their tables they all had an image and they wrote a caption for the picture. And then I made that into a Flowgram and narrated it for them and put that on Moodle. And to kind of gauge how they were discussing these images, I opened up a forum on Moodle so they could give their own personal thoughts and kind of have a discussion board to gauge and kind of data collect. And we didn't tell them that this was for extra credit. I gave them extra credit after, so they did this willingly. They just went in and did this on their own. And it was really interesting because most of them did post. Most of the kids in my class did post without any extra encouragement. At the end of the project, after I'd kind of seen what they'd done, they really did think through a lot of these images when we had these technologies. The technologies kind of provided a scaffold, I felt, and then eventually I was hoping that those could be pulled away. When I reached the end of my project, I kind of had some mixed conclusions. They were obviously more engaged, so for the first part of my question, they were liking the technologies, using them in the classroom. As for extending their analysis, I didn't have anything to gauge where they began. I wish that when I had started this, I had done like a control or something to kind of see where they'd gone and see how far they came, because otherwise there's nothing to kind of compare it to. And even then, I felt it needed to be like a whole year. Like it needed to be over the course of a whole year with multiple projects, because when I was talking to my cooperating teacher, she was commenting and she said, you know, they have come so far, but, you know, it's been over the course of time. We've had to build up this skill. So it's something that I kind of want to see if I can do in a classroom when I have my own kind of time to do it. So.
Thank you. Questions, folks?
Can you explain like the poster? Are those like flops?
Yeah, they're just the different images, like instead of just one, because I didn't know how, I thought we'd all be walking around.
And we will do after.
But, so this one has like chains, and they highlighted the chains. This one has a man being lynched in the background, and they couldn't see it, so they had to spotlight that and highlight that and pull it out. So I thought that, you know, those were just the different images that I used.
What about the flip?
Oh, the flip book is,
What about the Flowgram?
because I didn't know if I could play a Flowgram, so I just took the screenshots and had them up, so you guys can flip through.
And what did the bandwidth issue look like? How did that emerge?
If you use Flowgram technologies in the classroom, it kind of shuts down the server, like the streaming. I guess it can't stream. I also ran into that on YouTube. We would have to get in there like at 7 o'clock in the morning and let it stream, and then just use the same window all day. And that was how I had to use it. So for Flowgram, you can't do that because you have to reset it for every class. So we couldn't do that the other day.
Time-wise, what issues did you have with time or trying to get this in
Initially I
Or is it
wanted to
for-
do them all within when I was like full-time teaching, and that just that many technologies to teach a technology to middle schoolers, you have to use a whole day just to teach it. And so we ran into problems of just not having that amount of time to use it. I wish I had, if I could do it over, I would record more of their voices on the flowgrams, but with time we didn't really, because it was over break and we just didn't have enough time.
Were your students familiar with Smartboard? Or-
Very. I mean, they have had a smart board in their classroom all year.
Okay.
And so they've used the spotlight and the magnifier throughout the year. I just made it a big part of this one lecture that we did, where everybody had to come up and highlight something.
So how did that work? What did they have to do then?
They just, at their tables, every time we posted an image, I would say talk at your tables. They would talk about what they saw, and then the students would raise their hands, come up, volunteer to highlight what their group had talked about. And so everybody from every table would come up at a different time. So.
And this actually, this is for Jen as well. I've thrown it off as. Do you think using technology in social studies is different? And in what ways is it different from using technology in another subject? Because you also saw some English, using English and things like that. Does it lend itself differently at different times?
I really felt like I picked images because I felt like images is where technology really helps in social studies. You know, a lot of people when they become adults can't identify what Adolf Hitler looks like, and that's a real kind of shame. And so I feel like images is where you can really see, like we've talked about web quests, and that's where I really noticed a big change.
Other questions? Merci beaucoup.